Have you ever stopped to wonder what the world's most successful people actually do all day? What really sets them apart?
Yeah, what are those fundamental things they practice that lead to real sustained impact?
Exactly. And today, we're doing a deep dive into that very question. We're using Stephen Covey's, timeless bestseller, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, as our map.
It's a classic for a reason.
Right. And our mission here isn't just to, list the habits. It's to give you a quick but hopefully powerful glimpse into the principles behind them, the stuff that really unlocks their potential for, your life, both personal and professional.
And it's precisely that depth, the enduring relevance, that makes these habits so fascinating, isn't it? They've really stood the test of time.
What do you think that is?
Well, because they tap into something universal, I think. Universal principles about effectiveness. They give you practical ways to move beyond just being busy to making a real impact. So this deep dive, it's designed to give you those key nuggets, those essential insights, help you connect the dots for those, aha moments without getting totally bogged down in every single detail.
Right, a focused look. So let's unpack this then. We'll take a quick tour through all 7 habits.
Okay.
We'll explore not just what they are, but maybe why they're so potent. Why do top performers keep coming back to them?
And how they connect.
Yeah.
Right, they really build on each other as a whole system.
Exactly, a holistic approach. Have you ever felt like life is happening to you, maybe, rather than for you? Like
Yeah.
you're just constantly reacting, to things outside yourself? Caught in a cycle, maybe frustration, just waiting for things to change.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Well, today we're kind of pulling back the curtain on the very first big shift that high achievers make, how they break free from that feeling and, really steer their own course.
Right.
We're diving deep into habit 1, be proactive. Now, it's a concept many of us think we understand, but it's depth. It's truly transformative once you really grasp the nuances.
Absolutely.
So our mission here is to distill the most critical insights from the material you've shared, offering you a direct route, not just to being well-informed, but, genuinely empowered.
And what's often overlooked, I think, even by people familiar with Stephen Covey's work, is just how radical proactivity really is.
Radical. How so?
Well, at its heart, it's about taking 100% responsibility for your own life. And not in a blaming way, but really in an empowering one. Covey put it perfectly. He said, I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions.
Right. I remember that quote.
Many people hear that and think, okay, yeah, I control my choices. Sure. But what does that really mean? Especially when circumstances feel, overwhelming.
That's exactly where it gets interesting, isn't it? Because life throws curveballs. It always does.
Always.
And it's so easy then to feel like a victim of circumstance. So how do we actually tell the difference between, say, genuine victimhood and this proactive choice that Covey's talking about?
It means that regardless of the external circumstances you find yourself in,
Okay.
regardless of the environment you're in, your attitude, your reactions, and crucially, your decisions, those are always within your control.
Always.
Always. It's about recognizing that internal power, that locus of control that really no one can take from you. Think about it, right?
Yeah.
Rains, traffic jams up, someone says something mean. These things happen. They're external. But how you choose to respond, that's entirely yours.
That distinction is so key. And it brings us to, a pretty fundamental question, I think. When you look at people navigating life, how do you actually spot the difference between proactive and reactive? And maybe more importantly for you listening, which one do you tend to be?
Okay, let's try to paint a picture here. Reactive people, you'll often find their entire day, their mood, is sort of dictated by these external factors.
Right, like the weather.
Exactly. We've all been there, haven't we? You wake up, it's raining, and suddenly, my mood is just awful.
Or someone says something slightly negative.
Yes, and that anger just dominates your whole day. It seeps into every single interaction.
Yeah.
You hit traffic on your commute and boom, immediately it's a torrent of complaints, frustration. For reactive folks, it's almost like their emotional remote control is constantly in someone else's hands. The weather person, a rude driver, some critic online.
They've given it away, essentially.
Precisely. Now, contrast this with proactive people. They get it. They understand they can't control the rain.
But they can control.
They can decide to grab an umbrella and just continue their day. Simple as that sometimes.
Okay.
If someone says something negative, instead of getting sucked into that emotional whirlpool, They choose not to waste their energy on it.
It's a choice.
It is. And this isn't about being emotionless or, suppressing valid feelings. Not at all. It's about acknowledging the emotion, feeling it, but then making a conscious, deliberate choice about your response.
Right.
Covey had that brilliant term for it, responsibility. He really emphasized the ability to respond.
Breaking the word down.
Exactly. It's that disciplined choice. To be calm when things are chaotic, which honestly is often way harder, but far more impactful than just, aggressively doing something.
That idea of responsibility, it really is profound, especially when you think how easy it is to just react, to fall into that trap. And that leads us perfectly into another one of Covey's really insightful models, doesn't it? The circle of concern versus circle of influence.
Yes. And what's crucial here is understanding these aren't just abstract ideas. They're like maps showing where we choose to invest our energy, our mental and emotional energy.
Okay, so the circle of concern. What's in there?
That circle holds all those things that worry you. Things like global politics, the economy, maybe even just other people's behavior.
Things you read about, things you hear about.
Exactly. The defining thing is that these are generally not under your direct control.
Right.
Now, reactive people, they tend to pour enormous amounts of energy into this circle of concern.
Complaining, worrying.
Yes. Complaining about the news, thinking about what others should do, fretting about stuff they just can't control.
Oh.
And this only leads to more worry, more frustration, and ironically, less actual impact on their own lives because their energy is just scattered.
Wasted energy, really.
Pretty much. On the other hand, you have the circle of influence.
And this is?
These are the things that are genuinely within your control. We're talking your habits, your skills, your attitude, how you choose to use your time.
How you react to that difficult situation we mentioned.
Precisely. Your responsibility.
Yeah.
Proactive people, they strategically focus their energy here on this circle.
Makes sense.
And by doing that, they experience far more impact on their lives and, naturally, less worry. They're putting effort where it actually makes a difference. And here's a subtle but really important point.
Okay.
The more you focus on your circle of influence, the more it actually expands.
Oh, interesting. So it grows.
It grows. Your sphere of actual impact gets bigger over time.
So if that's the framework, the big question for you listening has got to be, how do you actually do that? How do you practically shift from being reactive to consciously expanding your circle of influence day to day? What are the steps?
Well, it often starts with something surprisingly simple, but incredibly powerful.
Which is?
Changing your language.
Yeah.
Our words. They don't just reflect our thought, they actually shape our reality.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, instead of saying, I can't do anything about this situation, try framing it as, okay, I'll see what I can do about this. Just that little shift.
Subtle, but different.
Or instead of the classic, I don't have time, switch to, I didn't prioritize it.
Ooh, that one stings a bit.
It's a powerful jolt of accountability, isn't it? It takes away the external excuse and puts the decision firmly back on you.
Okay, language is one. What else?
Second, start with small decisions. Look, proactivity isn't always about these grand, sweeping gestures or tackling huge problems right away.
Right.
It's built in the micro moments.
Yeah.
The small stuff.
Yeah.
Do you say you'd wake up on time? Then, do it.
Get out of bed.
Yeah. Did you commit to finishing a task by a certain deadline? Get it done. Even something as seemingly trivial as deciding when and how you use your phone, instead of just letting it grab your attention whenever it buzzes.
Taking control back even there?
Exactly. When you consistently set an intention, even a small one, and you follow through, you're building what you might call a muscle of consistency.
Yeah, I like that.
You're telling yourself, programming yourself unconsciously, hey, I am someone who follows through. I can trust myself with my own commitments. And this isn't just about being punctual, right? It's about building fundamental self-trust.
Which then fuels the bigger stuff.
Precisely. It empowers you for those bigger, more complex decisions later on.
Okay, language, small decisions. What's number 3?
And third, it's about learning to control your emotions. Now, again, this is not about suppression, not bottling things up.
Right, important distinction.
Very. It's about not letting anger or frustration or fear dominate your decisions. You acknowledge the emotion, okay, wow, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. But then you make a conscious choice about how you'll respond.
The pause.
That pause. That space between the stimulus and your response. That's where all your growth and all your power really lie. It's the difference between just lashing out in anger versus taking a breath, maybe stepping away, and then addressing the situation from a place of calm, chosen intention.
It's really eye-opening when you consider the ripple effect, isn't it? Adopting the single habit, being proactive. It feels like maybe a subtle shift at first, but the impact seems anything but subtle.
Oh, the positive effects are profound. When you
For example?
consistently embrace habit one, you genuinely stop feeling like a slave to circumstances or, to what other people do or say.
You feel more in control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your self-confidence grows,
Yeah.
often exponentially,
Yeah.
because you start seeing yourself as the true architect of the outcomes in your life.
The creator, not just reacting.
You become the creator, yes, not just the consumer of your experiences.
Uh,
And like we talked about, as you consistently focus on what you can control, making those conscious choices, your circle of influence, it just inevitably expands,
right, it gets bigger.
leading to a much greater sense of mastery and, well, authentic control over your entire life.
Wow. What an impactful exploration we've had in this deep dive. I mean, the core message really couldn't be clearer, could it? Being proactive isn't just some nice-to-have trait. It's the fundamental act of taking ownership, making those conscious choices, and really precisely directing your energy where it truly counts.
That's precisely it. Sums it up perfectly. Becoming proactive means quite decisively taking back the remote control of your life.
Taking back the remote. I like that.
So make the decision today. Decide that your happiness, your success, your personal progress, it's not going to hinge on someone else's mood or their words or some unpredictable circumstance. It's going to depend solely on your own deliberate decisions.
That's powerful. And okay, if you have that remote control in your hand, if you're truly steering the ship of your life, well, the next question is, in which direction do you turn it? How do you make sure the destination is actually the right one? That you're heading somewhere meaningful, not just somewhere?
hmm The critical next step.
The answer to that pretty profound question, that lies in habit two, begin with the end in mind. And we'll unpack that one next time on the deep dive.
Imagine this for a second. What if today, right now, was the last day of your life? What would you really want people to say about you? Your legacy. It's a pretty deep question, isn't it? But believe it or not, your answer, that actually holds the key to how your life should be directed. So today, we're doing a deep dive into one of Stephen Covey's, well, most foundational ideas. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Our mission here is basically to unpack the core stuff from our sources, give you a shortcut to understanding it, and really importantly, how you can actually use it.
Yeah, and that question he started with, it just perfectly nails Covey's central point. He says something pretty profound. All things are created twice, first in the mind, then in reality. So what that means for you listening is there's always that mental creation. There's the vision, the plan, that sort of internal blueprint. Then comes the physical creation, actually doing it. But here's the really critical insight. It's not just about planning, like making a to-do list. It's more like
Proud.
actively priming your subconscious mind. So it starts filtering out the noise and spotting opportunities that actually line up with that mental map you created. Because if that internal map is wrong, it doesn't matter how hard you work, how much energy you throw at it, you're going to end up in the wrong place.
Wow, okay. That really puts it starkly. So, if the wrong map leads you off course, what happens if you don't even have a map? Our sources really hammer this home. They say working without a clear goal is basically like wandering in a jungle without a compass. Reminds me of this project I jumped into once. Loads of enthusiasm, but zero clarity on the actual outcome, let's just say. A lot of energy went into, well, digging in completely the wrong spots.
Oh, that's such a classic trap, isn't it? You can be running flat out, super busy, looking really productive, but if you're not actually pointed in the right direction, all that speed, it's basically useless. Worse than useless, maybe. You just burn yourself out, ending up somewhere you didn't even want to be. The great thing about beginning with the end in mind, though, once you have that clear destination, once you know where you're aiming, it makes almost every daily decision so much simpler. It becomes your filter. You instantly see what fits, what you should say yes to, and maybe even more crucially, what you need to say no to, without all that second guessing.
Right, cuts through the noise. So, okay, if that destination is the key thing, what's the practical way Covey suggests we actually draw that right map? How do we figure out that end in mind? Our sources seem to really focus on the personal mission statement here.
Yes, the personal mission statement. It's a really powerful tool. Think of it like your own personal constitution, maybe, or your North Star. It's basically a written document where you lay out your deepest values, your biggest goals, what your life priorities really are. And it's not just something you write and forget. It's meant to be your moral compass, something that guides every single choice you make, the big stuff and the small stuff, and the process of creating it. That's actually really insightful in itself. First, you've got to really dig deep and identify your core values. What genuinely matters most? Like, is it honesty, family connection, learning, helping others? What is it for you? Then you need to spend some time thinking about what success actually looks like for you. Not what your boss thinks or what you see on social media, but what you truly want. And then this is key. You have to write it down, put it somewhere you'll see it, review it often. This isn't a one-off task. It's like a living document that evolves as you do.
Having that North Star sounds incredibly grounding. But, life isn't just one straight line, is it? We juggle different things. Covey talks about how this end-in-mind idea applies across the different roles we all have in life. Maybe for everyone listening, it's worth thinking for a moment. What are your main roles right now?
That's a really important point. He breaks it down very effectively. We all have multiple roles. Often there's a professional one, your job, your career path. There's usually a personal role that covers your health, maybe your self-improvement goals, hobbies. Then a big one for many, the family role, spouse, partner, parent, son or daughter, a sibling, and also a social role, friend, community member, volunteer, that kind of thing. And the key idea is that for each of these roles, you should have clarity on your values and your goals within that specific role. So for instance, in your family role, the end in mind might be about prioritizing real quality time being present. In your professional role, maybe it's a deep commitment to doing excellent, honest work, even on the boring tasks, because that aligns with your bigger value of integrity or contribution. This helps keep things in balance, right? So you don't achieve amazing career success, but find your personal life is a mess because you didn't define the end for that role too.
That makes sense. Balancing those different ends. And as you start thinking about these roles and what you want them to look like, another technique comes up often in the sources. Visualization. Sounds a bit buzzwordy sometimes, but it seems key here.
Oh, it's much more than a buzzword. It's a core practice for this habit. Visualization here means creating a really clear, vivid, almost sensory picture in your mind of your ideal future. It's not just wishful thinking. It's about actively, immersing yourself in the feeling of being that person you want to become. And here's the crucial link. The idea is that every small decision you make today should naturally start aligning with that mental picture. So let's say you visualize yourself a year from now as someone who's really healthy, energetic, confident. Okay, if that picture is strong enough, then your daily choices about, say, what you eat, whether you exercise, how you manage your schedule, they should start to feel almost automatic. They become the obvious steps towards that visualized future. It's like making your future self so real, your present actions just naturally fall into line.
Right, so it makes the future pull you forward rather than just pushing yourself constantly.
Yeah.
That's a powerful shift. Okay, so bringing all these pieces together, the destination, the mission statement, the roles, the visualization, what's the big picture? What's the real transformative impact when someone truly gets habit 2 working in their life?
Well, the impact can be genuinely huge. First off, you gain this incredible clarity. You finally really know if what you're doing day to day is actually moving you towards what you want, or if you're just, spinning your wheels being busy. That clarity alone can lift a massive weight of anxiety and stop so much wasted effort. Second, every choice, every decision starts to feel connected. It links back directly to your long-term goals. There's this coherence, this sense of purpose that starts to run through everything. And third, and this is massive for a lot of people, you drastically cut down on wasting time and energy on trivial stuff. Things that just don't serve your ultimate purpose. They start to fall away naturally. It brings this real sense of intentionality and, honestly, peace into your daily life.
It does seem to all boil down to that simple core wisdom we found in the sources, doesn't it? Something like, it's just foolish to start any journey without first setting a destination.
Exactly that. Habit 2 fundamentally teaches, first, decide where you're going. Decide your destination. And then, only then, can you make sure that every day you're taking steps, even tiny ones, that are actually in that right direction, moving with real purpose.
So you've set the destination, you know where you want to end up. But then the next question becomes, how do you actually choose the right steps each day? How do you pick the correct priorities from everything demanding your attention to make sure you actually get there? That's maybe the big question to ponder as you think about everything we've dug into today.
Okay, so you have 24 hours every day, right? We all do. But are you really spending them on things that truly change your life?
Or are you just, getting through the day, feeling like you're constantly putting out fires?
Exactly. And imagine if you've got this big goal, this big success you're aiming for, what's the very first step, the really crucial one? Well, today we're diving deep into something fundamental for that. It's about turning that daily grind into real momentum. We're talking Stephen Covey's Habit 3, put first things first.
From his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. This deep dive is all about being intentional, choosing actions that actually move you where you want to go, not just reacting all the time.
Right. Because, like, if habit 2, begin with the end in mind, was about figuring out your destination, where you're headed, then habit 3, this one, it's about the actual journey.
Yeah.
The daily choices, the tasks that, get you there.
So it's the how after the what and where.
Exactly. It's about investing your time where it gives you long-term benefits, not just patching up immediate problems.
Yeah.
Covey puts it really well. He says, effective people are not problem-minded, they're opportunity-minded.
Opportunity-minded. I like that. It's a shift, isn't it? From just solving issues to actively building the future you want.
It's a huge shift.
But, okay, thinking about someone who is constantly firefighting, maybe, like our listener Sarah mentioned, feeling overwhelmed. How do they even start shifting that mindset? Where's the practical tool?
That's where Covey's time management matrix comes in. It's brilliant, really. A practical starting point.
Ah, yes, the matrix. Good point.
For anyone feeling tangled up in their schedule, this matrix helps categorize how we spend our time. Breaks it down into 4 quadrants.
Okay, let's quickly revisit those, because knowing where you are spending your time is key, right, before you can change anything.
Definitely.
So quadrant 1, that's urgent and important.
Right. The crises, the emergencies, the deadlines breathing down your neck.
Stuff you absolutely have to deal with immediately.
Yes, but the trap is spending too much time there. It just leads to burnout, exhaustion. It's pure reaction mode.
Totally, the reactive zone. Constantly stressed.
And, the modern world pushes us there. Notifications, emails, constant demands. It makes us feel busy, maybe even productive.
But it's not the same as being effective.
Not at all. The real sweet spot where effective people focus is quadrant 2.
Okay, so Q2 is not urgent, but still important.
Exactly. These things aren't screaming for attention right now, but they're the foundations for long-term success.
Like what sort of things?
Well, think long-term planning, developing new skills, building relationships, taking care of your health, proactive work.
The stuff that prevents future crises, essentially.
Precisely. It's where you build capacity, where you achieve those bigger dreams.
It feels counterintuitive, though, doesn't it? In our world of instant everything, Q2 requires patience.
It does. Delayed gratification, which, is hard. It's easier to answer that urgent email than, say, block out an hour for strategic thinking.
Even if that hour of thinking saves you 10 hours down the line.
Right. So mastering Q2 it's a mental shift as much as a scheduling one.
Okay, so Q1 is crisis mode, Q2 is the goal zone. What about Q3?
Quadrant 3 is urgent, but not important. This one's tricky.
How so?
Because these tasks feel urgent. They demand attention, but they often don't align with your goals.
So like maybe some phone calls, unproductive meetings, other people's priorities landing on your desk.
Exactly. Interruptions often disguised as work. They drain your energy, but don't really move your own needle forward.
Got it. And the last one, quadrant 4.
Q4. Not urgent and not important.
The time waster quadrant.
Pretty much, yeah. Aimless scrolling on social media, maybe binge watching something with no real purpose. Just kind of drifting.
We all know Q4 sometimes. Maybe too well after a long day.
We do. It's easy to slip into. But Covey's core advice cuts right through it. He basically says, spend most of your time in quadrant 2.
The important, not urgent stuff.
And you'll find you need less time in quadrant 1.
Because you're preventing problems before they start.
Exactly. It's strategic. You shift from reactive crisis management to proactive opportunity creation. You build buffers, you plan ahead.
Makes total sense logically, but again, it feels like it goes against the grain. We often get praised for putting out fires, for being responsive now.
True. Immediate action often gets rewarded.
So how do you convince yourself or someone like Sarah to invest time in Q2 when the payoff isn't immediate? What's the practical bridge? How do we actually live there?
That's the key question, isn't it? And habit 3 gives us the how. It's not just about knowing the matrix. It's about the discipline to act on it.
Okay, so we know Q2 is the target zone, proactive growth. But getting there, that's the challenge. So habit 3 gives us rules for this.
Yes, 3 big rules, practical steps, and they lean heavily on discipline.
Right, discipline, not just planning. Okay, rule number 1.
Plan weekly, execute daily.
Okay, break that down. Plan weekly.
So maybe Sunday night or Monday morning first thing, set aside some time, look at the week ahead, and identify those key quadrant 2 activities, your big rocks. What really needs to happen to move towards your goals.
So you're setting intentions for the week based on importance, not just urgency.
Exactly. Then the second part, execute daily.
Meaning?
Each morning, before the day runs away from you, list maybe your top 3 or 4 priorities for that day, the tasks that align with your weekly Q2 goals.
So it's like a daily check-in, connecting back to the bigger picture before the emails start flooding in.
Precisely. It keeps your Q2 focus front and center. It's not just a to-do list, it's a priority list.
Okay, plan weekly, execute daily. Got it. Rule number 2.
This one can be tough. Learn to say no.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one for a lot of people. Saying no feels impolite sometimes.
It does. But it's crucial for protecting your quadrant 2 time. It's about setting boundaries.
So saying no to what specifically?
Non-essential meetings, for one. Maybe suggest handling it over email instead. Saying no to getting sucked into social media black holes when you plan to work on something important.
Or saying no to tasks that just aren't your responsibility or don't align with your main goals, even if someone asks nicely.
Right. If it doesn't serve your Q2 priorities, it's likely a distraction. No matter how urgent it seems to someone else or even to you in the moment, it takes courage.
Definitely takes courage. Okay, weekly planning, daily execution, learning to say no. What's rule number 3?
Rule 3, discipline over motivation.
Ah, this sounds like the core of it.
It really is. You know those days when you just don't feel like it? That big project seems daunting, the gym feels too far away.
Yeah, motivation is low, happens to everyone.
This rule says, do the important stuff anyway. Do your Q2 tasks even when you're not feeling inspired or motivated.
Because motivation is fickle, right? It comes and goes.
Exactly. Motivation might get you started, but it's discipline building the habit, showing up consistently that keeps you going and actually gets you to your goals.
Motivation gets you started, discipline keeps you going. I like that. It's about consistency, even on the off days.
That's the essence of it, building those routines.
Okay, let's make this concrete. How does this play out in real life? Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's think about, say, 2 students. Student A is consistently going to lectures, reviewing notes each week, maybe planning study sessions well in advance, and also making sure they get enough sleep and exercise.
Okay, sounds like they're firmly operating in quadrant 2, preparing, planning, maintaining.
Exactly. Proactive. Now, contrast that with student B. This student ignores the work most of the semester, then pulls an all-nighter fueled by caffeine and panic right before the exam.
Pure quadrant 1, reacting to the immediate crisis, the exam deadline.
Right. The difference in outcome is pretty predictable, isn't it? Not just in grades, probably, but also in stress levels, learning retention, overall well-being.
Absolutely. One is sustainable and leads to deeper learning. The other is stressful and superficial. That really illustrates the power of living in Q2.
It shows the difference habit 3 makes in practice.
So let's bring it back to the listener, maybe someone like Sarah feeling overwhelmed. What are the real benefits here if you actually manage to adopt habit 3?
Well, the big ones are pretty clear, I think. First, you consistently find time for those big, important tasks, the ones that actually move your life or career forward.
Instead of them always getting pushed aside by urgent stuff.
Right. Second, you'll likely feel a lot less stressed because you're not constantly living in crisis mode, putting out fires.
That sounds appealing. More proactive, less reactive.
And third, overall, you just become more productive, more effective, and crucially, you find a better sense of life balance. You're controlling your time rather than letting it control you.
It's about intentional living day by day.
It really is. And maybe the most powerful final thought tying this all together is pretty blunt. If you don't control your time, someone else will.
Wow, that hits home.
Habit 3 isn't just time management, you see. It's fundamentally life management.
Owning your days so you can own your direction, your destination. It determines whether you get where you want to go steadily and effectively or just drift along reacting to things. Okay, so we've learned to set priorities, to put first things first, which naturally leads to the next question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Once you're focused on your priorities, how do you interact with others? Can we find a way where we win pursuing our important goals, but the other person doesn't have to lose?
Moving beyond just prioritizing your stuff.
Right. Can we make it work for everyone involved? That sounds like habit 4, think win-win. We'll have to dive into that next time. Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really get into compelling ideas, unpack source material, and hopefully give you insights that, actually make a difference.
Glad to be diving in.
So today, we're tackling what feels like a really fundamental question about how we engage with each other, with the world, really. It's this. Is life basically a competition, or is it more about collaboration?
That's a big one.
It is. And just think about this for a second. Imagine a world where every single deal, every relationship, every single interaction, both people genuinely won.
Wow.
Sounds pretty radical, right? A total reframe.
It absolutely does. And, that radical reframe you're talking about, that's precisely the heart of what Stephen Covey called Habit 4. Think win-win.
Ah, okay, so habit 4.
Exactly. And for anyone familiar with Covey's work, you'll know this isn't like just some negotiation trick or a simple technique. The sources really stress this. It's described as a total philosophy of human interaction. So it requires a pretty deep, fundamental shift in how we approach basically every connection we make.
Total philosophy. Okay, so yeah, our mission in this deep dive then is to properly unpack this mindset. We want to understand not just what it is, but why it's actually so critical for, lasting success and building relationships that are genuinely strong, resilient.
Right.
And then, probably most importantly, explore how you, listening right now, can actually start applying this in your own day-to-day interactions.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so when we talk about think win-win, on the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward. Find solutions, both sides benefit. Easy, right?
If only.
But the sources suggest there's a really profound shift needed to actually get there. What is that? Especially when, let's be honest, a lot of us kind of default to other ways of operating.
That's a really crucial point, because what's fascinating and what the sources highlight is that this win-win paradigm really demands moving away from a scarcity mindset. That feeling that resources, success, everything, it's limited.
Yeah, like there's only so much pie to go around.
Exactly. The zero-sum game idea. Most people are sort of conditioned, often unconsciously, to think that if one person wins, well, someone else has to lose. But win-win just directly challenges that assumption. It says, hang on, maybe there's actually enough success, enough opportunity for everyone involved to come out ahead, to thrive. It's an abundance mindset.
Right, abundance. And that sounds like where the real mental heavy lifting comes in, doesn't it? Because, like you said, and the sources point this out too, we often fall back on these other mindsets, sometimes without even realizing it. You've got the classic win-lose approach, right? I get what I want, you don't.
The default for many, probably.
It might get you a short-term gain, sure, but it almost always seems to fracture relationships, build resentment down the line.
Absolutely. It kills trust.
Or, the flip side is lose-win. Like, okay, you win, I'll just lose. This feels like just sacrificing your own needs constantly.
Which is just unsustainable. It might seem noble or nice, but over time it eats away at your self-esteem. And it can create this dynamic where you're easily taken advantage of.
Yeah, leads to burnout or just feeling walked over.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So win-lose creates these competitive, often really stressful environments. Genuine collaboration. Pretty much impossible. And lose-win, well, like you said, it might look selfless, but often there's this deep resentment simmering underneath that poisons things for everyone eventually.
And then there's the really ugly one, lose-lose.
Oh, yeah. The downward spiral. We've all seen that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Where both sides are just so dug in, maybe focused on revenge or just being stubborn, that they both end up worse off than when they started. It's just incredibly destructive.
Totally destructive. So connecting this back, the sources seem pretty clear that if you want successful, enduring relationships, you have to consistently aim for that win-win ideal, because it seems like it's the only way to genuinely balance everyone's needs and, crucially, build and keep that trust.
That's exactly the argument. Trust is the foundation. Without it, win-win is just talk.
Okay. Okay, so if win-win is the goal, maybe the only truly sustainable goal, how do we actually cultivate it? How do we do it? Our deep dive into the material suggests it sort of rests on 3 main pillars, starting with character.
Character.
When the sources talk about character being foundational for win-win, what's often missed there? Is it just about being a good person? Or is it, more specific than that?
That's a really good question, because, yeah, it goes way beyond just being nice. Character, in this specific win-win context, really refers to 3 key traits that are all interlinked.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's integrity, which is fundamentally about being true to your values, keeping your commitments, being reliable, consistent. People know where they stand with you.
Makes sense.
Integrity. Second is maturity. Now, Covey defines this quite specifically. It's the balance between having the courage to state your own feelings and needs clearly, and having the consideration, the empathy, to genuinely listen to and understand the needs and perspectives of the other person.
Courage and consideration. That balance sounds tricky.
It is. It's much harder than it sounds. It requires real emotional intelligence.
Okay, integrity, maturity. And the third.
And third is that abundance mentality we touched on earlier. That deep-seated belief that there really is plenty out there for everybody. Enough resources, recognition, success. It's a fundamental shift away from seeing life as this limited pie, where if someone else gets a slice, that means less for you.
That abundance mentality really does feel crucial. It's one thing to sort of grasp it intellectually,
Right.
but another to genuinely internalize it, especially when society often pushes us towards scarcity, towards competition. But yeah, if you truly believe there's enough, you're probably way less likely to feel you have to like fight tooth and nail for your bit.
Exactly. It opens up possibilities for collaboration instead of just conflict.
And that seems to lead naturally into the second element the sources mention, relationships. This one feels a bit more intuitive maybe, but what's the core insight?
It does feel intuitive, but I think what often gets overlooked is just how absolutely critical trust is. You simply cannot have win-win without a high degree of trust. It's impossible.
Right. Trust is the currency.
Absolutely. And this trust, it isn't built overnight, or with one big gesture. It's built slowly, consistently over time through being honest, showing respect, being reliable in all your interactions. Covey uses that analogy of an emotional bank account.
Ah, yeah, I remember that. Deposits and withdrawals.
Exactly. Every time you're honorable, keep a promise, listen properly, that's a deposit. Every time you're dishonest, disrespectful, break a commitment, that's a big withdrawal. High trust comes from a high balance.
That bank account analogy really makes it clear how relational it is. It's built interaction by interaction. Okay, so you need the right character, you need high trust relationships, but ultimately all that needs to show up somewhere concrete, doesn't it?
It does.
Which brings us to the third key element, the actual agreements we make. This feels like where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
For sure. Agreements are really the practical, tangible outcome of a win-win approach.
Yeah.
It's about setting up clear expectations from the start, defining roles, responsibilities, desired outcomes, consequences, all that up front. And the goal, always, is to structure things so the solution genuinely benefits both parties, making sure the outcome feels mutually rewarding.
So it's about designing the interaction, the deal, whatever it is,
Yeah.
so that the win-win result is kind of baked into the agreement itself, not just something you hope happens at the end.
That's exactly it. You're building the win-win into the very structure.
Okay, let's try and make this even more concrete. Can we use an example? Like, say, you and a friend decide to start a business together. How would these different mindsets play out there?
Oh, that's a perfect example. Okay, so a win-lose scenario. Maybe one friend tries to grab a bigger share of the profits than their contribution warrants. Or maybe they structure the deal to control all the key decisions, leaving the other feeling kind of, exploited or resentful.
Yeah, I can see that happening easily. Seeds of conflict right there.
Definitely. Now, lose-win. Maybe one friend is less assertive or maybe just wants to keep the peace, so they just give in to everything the other friend wants, taking on more work for less reward, maybe.
Yeah.
That leads straight to their own dissatisfaction, maybe burnout, and the partnership probably won't last.
Right, they're losing, even if the business technically wins for a bit.
Exactly. But a true win-win approach, that would involve both friends sitting down, being really transparent about what they each bring, what they each need, and then agreeing together on how to fairly divide a cost, the effort, the decision-making, and of course the profits, based on agreed-upon value and contributions.
So everyone feels genuinely invested and happy with the arrangement.
Precisely.
And because both are motivated and feel respected, the business itself has a much, much higher chance of succeeding long term. The partnership is strong because it's built on that mutual benefit.
That makes total sense. You can immediately see how that approach fosters sustainability, not just a quick grab. So for you listening, how do we actually start to adopt this, to make win-win more of our default setting in daily life? What are the practical steps?
Well, the sources, particularly Covey, outline a few really key actionable steps. First, and this is huge, you have to genuinely try to understand the other person's needs and perspective first. This means deep, empathic listening, really trying to see the situation from their point of view before you even start pushing your own agenda. Understand first. Okay. That requires patience.
It really does.
Yeah.
Second, engage in creative problem solving. Don't just assume it's either your way or their way, or a simple compromise where both lose a bit. Actively look for those third alternatives. New solutions that maybe weren't obvious at first, but could actually be better for both sides.
Thinking outside the box, basically.
Kinda, yeah. Third, think long-term. Resist the temptation to grab a small, immediate win if it means damaging a valuable long-term relationship. Always weigh the short-term gain against the long-term trust and cooperation.
Good reminder. Don't sacrifice the relationship for the transaction.
Exactly. And finally, keep consciously nurturing that abundance mindset. Actively remind yourself, especially when things feel scarce or competitive, that opportunities and success aren't finite. There usually is enough for everyone to flourish if we look for it.
Understand first, be creative, think long-term, and maintain abundance.
Okay.
It definitely sounds like it fosters a much more positive, more productive, and ultimately, yeah, a more sustainable environment all around.
It really does.
So, wrapping things up a bit, what are the big picture benefits? If you truly embrace habit 4, what changes?
Well, as we've kind of touched on throughout, the most immediate benefit is usually a dramatic boost in trust and mutual respect in your relationships. Personal, professional, doesn't matter.
Right. Trust goes up.
Yeah. And that leads to more lasting, more sustainable success. Because instead of creating adversaries, you're building a network of people who genuinely want to cooperate with you. They trust you'll look out for their interests too.
So less conflict, more cooperation.
Exactly. It ultimately brings more consistent cooperation, more support, more synergy from others. It fundamentally transforms interactions from being potential battlegrounds into opportunities for shared growth and mutual gain.
It just feels like such a powerful and frankly refreshing alternative to all the conflict and that zero-sum thinking we see so much of in the world, doesn't it?
It truly is. And, to close out our deep dive today, the source material leaves us with this really potent thought. When you want to win and the other person also wins, the number of friends in the world increases instead of enemies.
Friends increase, enemies decrease.
Yeah. It just perfectly captures how genuine success in this way of thinking means everyone involved moves forward. Everyone thrives together.
And that actually leads us to a really interesting question to maybe chew on after this deep dive ends. Because, well, to truly achieve that win-win, and especially that deep understanding of someone else's needs that you mentioned, don't we first need to understand ourselves pretty deeply, our own biases, our own needs, our own triggers? It sort of raises a big question about how we navigate our next steps in really mastering this whole human interaction thing.
That's a very profound point to end on. Self-awareness is the starting point.
Something to think about, anyway. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the win-win philosophy. We really hope it sparks some new thinking for you about your own relationships and interactions, and maybe helps you see more possibilities for mutual success out there. We'll catch you next time on the deep dive.
Okay, let's talk about conversations. Have you ever caught yourself maybe in a meeting or just chatting, not really listening to understand the other person?
Oh, absolutely.
But instead, you're just sort of waiting for them to take a breath so you can jump in with your own point.
Yeah, formulating that perfect reply in your head while they're still talking. It happens all the time.
It's such a common thing, isn't it? But here's what we're thinking about today. What if changing just that one habit, that way of listening, could actually fundamentally change your relationships?
Or your deals, your negotiations.
Exactly, even just your everyday chats.
Well, that leads us right into our topic. We're doing a deep dive into Stephen Covey's Habit 5. It's a big one. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Powerful stuff. So our mission here is to really get under the hood of this habit. What does empathic listening actually mean? What does it look like when you're doing it right?
And maybe why it's kind of a shortcut to being genuinely connected and, frankly, better informed.
Okay, let's dig in. Where does Covey start with this?
Well, what's really interesting is how he immediately points out this basic flaw in how a lot of us communicate.
Okay.
He has that famous line, right? Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
Oof. Yeah, that hits home.
It does. So habit 5, it's not just, a couple of tips on how to listen better. It's presented as a really fundamental shift in your mindset.
A radical shift, you said earlier.
Yeah, pretty radical. It's saying, hang on, before you even think about making your case, before you expect anyone to really hear you, you absolutely have to get where the other person is coming from. You need to grasp their perspective first.
So it's like trying to see the world through their eyes for a moment. Feel what they're feeling almost.
That's the core of it. That's what empathic listening is aiming for.
Well, why is it so important? Why does he frame it as such a critical foundational habit?
Well, think about trust. How do you build real trust if you don't have real understanding?
Good point. You
Right.
probably can't.
Exactly. You really can't. And without that understanding, misunderstandings are, well, they're almost guaranteed, aren't they?
Yeah, things go off the rails pretty quickly.
Productive conversation just stops. And stepping back a bit, Covey's point is that people only really, truly open up to your ideas and genuinely listen to you once they feel like you've properly heard and understood them.
Oh.
It's like the entry ticket. It's the prerequisite for anything meaningful to happen next.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that feeling of, why should I bother listening to you if you clearly haven't heard a word I've said?
Precisely.
And Covey also talks about different levels of listening, right? It's not just like an on-off switch.
He does, yeah, and it's quite revealing when you think about where you might usually operate. He lays out this kind of spectrum.
Okay, what's on it?
Well, at the bottom, you've got just plain ignoring someone, completely tuned out.
Right.
Then there's pretending to listen. You know, you do the nodding, the uh-huh.
While mentally planning your grocery list.
Exactly. Then there's selective listening, where you only really tune in when they say something that connects to your own interests or agenda.
Picking out keywords almost.
Kind of.
Right.
And then there's attentive listening. Now, this is better. You're actually paying close attention to the words being said.
But you're still filtering it all through your own viewpoint, your own experiences.
That's the catch.
Yeah.
You're hearing the words, but maybe not the full message because it's all being processed from your frame of reference, not theirs.
So even attentive listening isn't quite enough if we stop there.
It's not the final goal, no. The highest level, the one Habit 5 is all about, is empathic listening.
Okay.
And this goes way beyond just the words. It's really striving to understand the other person's whole experience, their emotions, the meaning behind the words, their perspective, almost feeling it yourself.
Wow.
It's about understanding their emotional reality, not just their intellectual points.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful. It also sounds, frankly, quite difficult. Like it takes real conscious effort. How do we actually do it? What are the practical steps?
Oh, it absolutely takes conscious effort and intention. It doesn't just happen. The first step Covey suggests is to ask open-ended questions.
Not yes/no questions.
Right. Things that invite more than a one-word answer. Think like, can you tell me more about that? Or how did that make you feel? Or what led you to think that?
So you're genuinely inviting them to open up, not grilling them for information.
Exactly. It's an invitation, a crucial distinction, like you said.
Okay, what's next?
Next, and this is really key, rephrase and reflect what you're hearing, but in your own words.
Not just parroting it back.
No, definitely not parroting. It's showing you've actually processed it. So you might say something like, okay, so if I'm understanding this right, you're feeling really frustrated because X happened, and that made you concerned about Y.
I see. And that does two things, right? It shows you're listening and gives them a chance to say, well, not exactly, if you got it wrong.
Precisely. It validates their feelings and clarifies understanding. It keeps you both on the same page.
Okay. Open questions, reflecting back. What else? You mentioned emotions earlier.
Yes. You need to recognize their emotions. Listen between the lines. What's the feeling behind the words? Pay attention to their tone of voice, their body language, facial expressions.
All nonverbal stuff.
Which is often where the real message is, right? Communication is so much more than just the words.
Definitely.
And maybe the hardest part for a lot of us, suspend judgment.
Ooh, yeah. That's tough.
It really is. When you're truly listening empathically, your goal isn't to jump in with your own opinion or to critique them or even necessarily to fix their problem right away.
Your job is just to understand.
Just to understand. To really bear witness to their experience without imposing your own filter immediately.
Okay. So let's say you do all that. You've asked good questions. You've reflected accurately. You've picked up on the emotion. You've bitten your tongue and held back judgment. They feel genuinely heard. Then what? When do you get to speak? When does the then to be understood part kick in?
Right. That's the critical pivot, because it's only after you've established that understanding, when the other person truly feels heard, you can usually sense it. That's when the space opens up for you to effectively present your own view.
Because you've earned the right, almost.
In a way, yes. You've deposited into their emotional bank account, as Covey might say. Before that, anything you say, however brilliant you think it is, might just bounce off or be met with defensiveness.
Okay.
So at that point, when you do share your perspective, you can do it clearly, respectfully, and importantly, you can frame it in a way that acknowledges the understanding you've just gained. You might say something like, okay, I really hear your concerns about X. From my perspective, I see Y, and maybe we can find a way to address both.
Aiming for that win-win he talks about.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is often to move towards a solution where both parties feel their needs and perspectives have been genuinely considered and hopefully met.
I remember this time years ago, early in my career. I had this idea I was so passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically just charged into meetings and sort of steamrolled everyone with it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was being persuasive, making myself understood, but nothing ever really happened with the idea. People just nodded politely.
Because they probably didn't feel heard first.
Exactly. If only I'd read Covey back then. Could you maybe walk us through a more common scenario, like how this plays out day to day?
Sure. Let's take a team meeting. Imagine you propose something, an idea you've worked on,
Okay.
and someone else, maybe a colleague or your boss, shoots it down pretty quickly. No, that won't work because...
Immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Heart rate spikes, get defensive, want to argue why they're wrong.
Totally normal reaction. That's the instinct. Fight or flight kicks in. But if you're consciously trying to practice habit 5, you'd take a breath. Pause. And instead of launching into your defense, you might say something like, okay, help me understand your concerns better. What specifically makes you feel this approach isn't right for us at the moment?
So you're not agreeing with them,
Not at all.
but you're genuinely trying to understand the reason for their objection, rather than just fighting the objection itself.
Precisely. You're shifting from confrontation to exploration. And then, once you understand their reservations, maybe it's budget, maybe it's timing, maybe it's a factor you hadn't considered, then you're in a much better position.
Right. Maybe you can then adapt your idea to address their point. Or maybe together you realize there's a completely different, better approach. It's not just about winning the argument anymore.
That's the huge shift. It moves away from winning and losing towards mutual understanding and problem solving.
The benefits must be pretty significant then if you can consistently do this.
They really are transformative. It's not just about building trust, which is huge in itself, or strengthening relationships. Empathic listening is like a conflict de-escalator.
The circuit breaker.
Yeah, a circuit breaker. It diffuses so much tension because you often uncover the real issue behind someone's anger or resistance, which might be different from what they first say.
And in negotiations or any tough conversation.
It's incredibly powerful. It creates psychological safety. When people feel truly heard, they feel safer to contribute honestly, to be vulnerable, to collaborate. It paves the way for those win-win outcomes much more effectively than just pushing your own agenda.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, it really comes down to the almost counterintuitive power of putting understanding first, making that the absolute priority before you even worry about making your own points.
It seems counterintuitive, but it's the key.
And doing that builds trust, reduces conflict, and just opens up better ways to solve problems together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It sounds simple, but the impact is profound.
So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over.
Yeah, here's something to think about. People only truly seriously consider your ideas, your perspective, your solutions when they feel deep down that you have genuinely understood them first.
Without that foundation, you're just talking at them, not with them.
Exactly. So the question to ask yourself is, how can you apply this principle, seek first to understand in your own life, starting today, in your work, with your family, with your friends? How could it change your conversations and connections? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something really powerful from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. It's Habit 6, Synergize.
Yeah, a big one.
Definitely. So the basic idea, right, is working together to get a result that's, well, better than what anyone could do alone.
Exactly.
It's about taking different people with all their unique skills and ideas and combining them, finding solutions that, one person just couldn't see, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, basically.
And that's really why it sits where it does in the book.
Yeah.
Habit 6, Synergize. It kind of caps off the interpersonal habits. It builds right on top of Habit 4, think win-win, and critically Habit 5, seek first to understand.
Then to be understood. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Without really grasping and frankly living those habits, getting to true synergy is, well, it's incredibly tough.
Yeah.
So today we'll unpack how this isn't just some nice theory. It's a really practical tool for growth, both personal and professional.
Okay, so let's unpack that famous phrase Covey uses, 1 + 1 = 3 or even more. Now, obviously, that's not literal math. It's pointing to something emergent, isn't it? Like the combined result is way bigger than just adding up individual efforts. But here's what I'm curious about. How is this really different from just, teamwork? We hear that term all the time.
That's a great question, and it's a really important distinction. Teamwork is, it's collaboration, but synergy. It takes it a step further. It's specifically geared towards generating new, often better ideas, solutions that simply wouldn't surface if people were just working side by side or in isolation. This is less about just combining effort and more about sparking completely new insights. Remember, think win-win. That's not just about finding a middle ground. It's believing there's a solution where everyone genuinely comes out ahead. You need that belief for synergy.
Right.
And seek first to understand. That forces you, really forces you, to listen deeply, to empathize. So you start to value different viewpoints, not just tolerate or dismiss them. And valuing difference, that's the absolute fuel for synergy.
So it's about innovation sparking from that tension between different ideas almost, not just smoothing things over.
Exactly. Genuine innovation.
But I mean, let's be honest, that sounds pretty challenging. What sort of mindset do we actually need? Especially when, we might be used to competing or just settling for compromise.
You've hit the nail on the head. It is challenging.
Yeah.
Covey talks about 3 key mental shifts, and they're easier said than done, believe me. First, genuinely embracing differences.
Okay.
That means not just automatically shooting down someone else's idea, but looking at it like, okay, what can I learn here? How does this add something new? Second, you need a truly open mind.
Ego gets in the way there, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. The whole my way is the right way trap. It takes some real intellectual humility. And third, focusing on creative collaboration. This isn't a debate club. It is not about winning an argument. It's about discussion, joint problem solving, co-creating something entirely fresh.
I can really see how vital that mindset is. It feels like lowering your defenses almost.
Yeah.
So if you have that mindset, what are the practical steps? How do you actually do synergy in a team or, in a family?
Right, moving from theory to practice.
Right.
Covey lays out about 4 key stages. First one, absolutely non-negotiable, build trust.
Makes sense.
People just won't share their real, maybe even slightly out there ideas if they don't feel safe. You need that psychological safety, otherwise you just get guarded answers,
Yeah.
not innovation.
Yeah.
Second, you have to really understand the differences. Listen actively, hold back judgment, and frame disagreements not as problems, not as us versus them, but as valuable resources. Like, okay, this person sees something I don't.
That's a big shift, viewing disagreement as a resource.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
Third, then you can genuinely seek creative solutions. This is where win-win thinking really plays out, aiming for something that benefits everyone involved. And finally, the ultimate goal, find a better way. That's Covey's famous third alternative.
The third alternative. I like that.
Yeah. It's often a completely new solution, way better than what either side started with. It can actually be quite surprising when it emerges.
So it's not just tweaking option A or option B, it's finding a whole new option C that's better than both.
Exactly. It's a leap, like you said earlier.
Okay, so when teams or even couples manage this, what are the real payoffs? What benefits do you actually see?
Oh, the benefits are pretty significant. You get much stronger relationships, way more trust because people feel genuinely heard and valued. That's huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Naturally, that leads to more innovative problem solving. You're tapping into a much wider pool of ideas, perspectives,
Yeah.
stuff one person would never think of. You also tend to see this real surge in energy and motivation. People get excited contributing to something truly collaborative, something potentially groundbreaking.
Oh, right. Ownership.
Exactly. And long term, it leads to more sustainable success, whether that's in business or your personal life, because the solutions you come up with are just more robust, more holistic.
That sounds incredibly valuable. Can you maybe give us a couple of examples just to help listeners picture it? Where does synergy show up in the real world?
Sure. Think about nature, for instance. An ecosystem like a rainforest. You've got countless different plants, animals, fungi, bacteria.
It's all interconnected.
Right. No single species could thrive like that on its own. It's the synergy between them, how they cycle nutrients, provide shelter, pollinate each other, that makes the whole forest flourish. It's way beyond what any single tree or animal could do.
That's a great visual. What about, say, in business?
Okay, picture a company launching a new product.
Yeah.
You might have marketing, R&D, sales. In a non-synergistic way, they might just work in silos, handing things off.
Yeah, happens all the time.
But with synergy, they collaborate deeply from the start. R&D's technical insights shape marketing's message. Sales feedback influences product features early on. They co-create the strategy. The end result is usually a much more successful product because it's built on that shared understanding and combined expertise. None of them could have done it as well alone.
And personally, like in a family.
Absolutely. Think about a family facing a challenge, maybe planning a big move or dealing with a financial setback. If they synergize, they pool everyone's strengths. One person might be great at research, another at budgeting, another provides emotional support. They come up with a plan together that addresses everyone's needs and uses everyone's talents, something no single member could have figured out or managed alone.
Okay, that makes it really concrete. Now, this leads to something Covey says that might surprise people. He calls out the enemy of synergy, and it's compromise.
Yes.
Which sounds weird, right? Isn't compromise usually seen as a good thing, like finding the middle ground? Why is it the enemy here?
It does sound counterintuitive at first because, yeah, we're often taught compromise is mature, it's necessary. But Covey draws a really sharp line here, using those simple formulas again. Compromise, he argues, is like 1 + 1 = 1.5.
Okay. Explain that.
Both sides give something up. They both step back from what they ideally want to find an acceptable middle. You settle. So the result is often, well, average, kind of diluted. Neither party is fully happy. You both lost something.
Okay, I see that. Less than the sum of the parts, in a way.
Exactly. But synergy, remember, is 1 + 1 = 3 or more. You're not giving things up to meet in the middle. You're working together to create something new and better than either of your starting points. It elevates the outcome. So compromise dilutes, synergy innovates, it creates a bigger pie instead of just dividing the existing one differently.
Wow, okay. That's a really powerful distinction. Compromise settles, synergy creates.
Precisely.
So, wrapping this all together then, if we boil down habit 6, Synergize, what's the absolute core message for you listening right now?
I think the biggest takeaway is that differences aren't problems to be managed, they're actually opportunities. They're assets. The core lesson is to really consciously build that trust, keep an open mind, and actively create spaces where everyone's strengths can combine to find those new, better ways forward. It's about deliberately shifting from my way or your way to finding that exciting third alternative that genuinely benefits everyone more.
So, a challenge for you as you go about your week, start noticing your interactions at work, maybe at home. Where are you defaulting to compromise, perhaps? Where could you push a little, maybe, to seek out that third alternative, to really try and synergize?
Yeah, and maybe take a step further. Pick just one situation this coming week, just one, where you consciously decide to practice these steps. Really try to see the differences on the table not as conflict, but as a resource, as fuel for innovation. Just see what happens, what new possibilities might open up if you approach it that way.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a concept that, honestly, once you really get it, it changes everything. Your whole approach to, well, productivity and just feeling okay. Imagine this. 2 people cutting trees, way out in the forest. One guy works like crazy, just chopping all day long. Sun goes down, he's wiped out, and, his pile of logs, surprisingly small. Then there's the other person, looks pretty fresh, actually, energetic, and their pile of logs, way bigger. So what's the difference? Well, the second person, they actually took time out to sharpen their saw. So that gets you thinking, doesn't it? What's your life saw, the tool you use every day? And maybe the bigger question is, when do you actually sharpen it? Our mission today is to really unpack this idea, Stephen Covey's Habit 7, Sharpen the Saw. We're digging into our source material to pull out, the practical stuff, how we can keep our energy up, stay effective, not just for today, but like for the long haul. Okay, so our sources point straight to Covey on this. He says, if you have 6 hours to cut a tree, spend the first 1 hour sharpening the saw. Now, expert, that sounds simple enough, right?
It does sound simple, but the genius here, and what the sources really emphasize, isn't just take a break. It's deeper. It's recognizing that pushing hard without renewal, that actually defeats the purpose in the end.
Oh, right. It's not just a break, it's strategic.
Exactly. It's a shift. You stop seeing self-care or renewal as some kind of luxury, something you do if you have time. Instead, you see it as maybe the most critical input for getting anything done consistently.
So it's an investment, not an expense. That's what the sources seem to be driving at.
Precisely. That's the core insight. You think you're losing time by sharpening the saw, but actually you're gaining it back big time in efficiency, in your capacity to handle things, just overall effectiveness. It's really the ultimate long game.
The long game.
Yeah, you're not just dodging burnout, though. That's huge. You're actually building a stronger, more resilient foundation for everything else you do, which raises a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, if it's so vital, why are we often so bad at it? Why do we push ourselves right to the edge instead of doing this necessary maintenance?
That is the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? It's a total paradox.
Yeah.
We kind of know this stuff, distinctively maybe, but we still ignore it. What did the sources suggest is the deep reason we skip sharpening the saw, even when we're clearly running on empty?
That's a great question. And The wisdom in these texts, it sort of hints at it. It often boils down to a false sense of urgency, you know?
A false urgency.
How so? We prioritize the task that's right in front of us, the thing that feels immediate, visible, and we put off the long-term, maybe invisible investment in ourselves.
We tell ourselves, I don't have time.
Exactly. I don't have time. But what we really mean is, I'm not making it a priority. We see renewal as something separate from the real work, instead of seeing it as absolutely integral to the work. It's like thinking you'll get more miles by never changing the car's oil. Just keep driving.
Oof. Yeah, that oil change analogy, that definitely hits home. Okay, so renewal isn't just one thing. That's another key point I found really powerful. Covey doesn't just leave it as this vague idea. He gives us a framework, right? These 4 dimensions.
Absolutely. And that's where it becomes really practical. He makes it actionable, shows us where to focus, gives us a roadmap, basically, starting with the physical dimension.
Right, the body.
Yeah, the foundation.
Right.
It's about exercise, eating well, getting enough sleep. Simple stuff, but crucial, because it's just really hard to perform well day after day if your body isn't holding up.
Makes sense.
And the research here highlights you don't need to run a marathon. Even just 20, 30 minutes of walking, maybe some yoga daily, that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes, that feels doable.
Right.
Even when things are crazy. But it's often the first thing we ditch when deadlines loom, isn't
It
it?
absolutely is. And then you're running on fumes, like you said. Your saw gets duller and duller. Covey emphasizes consistency over, massive bursts of effort. Just keep doing it.
Okay, consistency. Got it. What's next?
Next up is the mental dimension. This is all about keeping your mind engaged, reading, learning new things, maybe upgrading your skills.
Like keeping the blade sharp mentally?
Precisely. The mind needs challenges, new input. Otherwise it gets, dull, like an unused muscle. And the tip here is super simple. Try reading one new article, or maybe just one chapter of a book each week. Something outside your usual routine, perhaps.
Just one chapter a week. Again, sounds small, but I can see how that adds up. It stops you getting stuck in a rut, right? Only reading work emails or industry reports.
Exactly. It broadens your horizons, keeps you adaptable. Then there's the social-emotional dimension.
Okay, relationships and feeling.
Yeah. This is about nurturing your important relationships, practicing empathy, really trying to understand others, and building a positive network around you. Because trustworthy, healthy relationships, they're a massive stress reducer, a huge source of support.
That makes sense. Less friction, more support.
Totally. And the practical tip, maybe just call someone, friend, family member once a week. Not for any big reason, maybe just to say thanks or just to connect, check in.
I think this one gets pushed aside a lot, maybe even more than the physical sometimes. We think, I don't have time for a chat. But those connections, they really fuel us, don't they? It reminds you you're not alone in things.
So true. It's fundamental to our well-being. Okay, finally, the 4th dimension, spiritual.
Spiritual. Now, this isn't necessarily about religion, is it?
Not exclusively, no. It's broader. It's about connecting to your core values, finding your sense of purpose, maybe through things like meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, or even just quiet self-reflection. It's what strengthens you from the inside out. It gives you that inner resilience.
That deep inner strength.
Exactly. And the tip here is maybe spending just 5 or 10 minutes each day doing whatever practice resonates with you. Meditation, quiet thought, whatever centers you.
5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So listening to this, you might be thinking about these 4 areas. Physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual. Which one, or maybe ones, do you tend to let slide the most? It's a useful question, I think, because often the area we ignore is the one that's secretly draining our battery.
That's a really good point. And just to reinforce why this whole habit is so crucial, our sources are crystal clear. If you don't do this consistently, burnout isn't just possible, it's almost inevitable.
Right. It's prevention.
It's prevention, but it's also enhancement. The wisdom from the texts suggests that habit 7, sharpen the saw, actually makes all the other good habits you're trying to build even stronger. It doesn't go into detail on the others here, but it makes sense, right? It fuels everything else.
Yeah. It's the energy source for the other habits.
Exactly. But host, let's be real. There's often this feeling, especially in demanding jobs or busy lives, that taking time for this stuff means you're slacking off or falling behind, right? How do the sources tackle that pushback?
That's such a key point.
Yeah.
And it loops us right back to that lumberjack story, doesn't it? The guy hacking away with the dull saw.
Too busy cutting to sharpen.
Exactly. I don't have time. I'm too busy. And the tragic irony, the core paradox we all wrestle with, is that if he'd just stopped for, say, 10 minutes, sharpened that blade,
He'd have saved himself maybe an hour of sweaty, frustrating, inefficient work.
Precisely. So the sources really underline this. Investing in yourself consistently across these 4 dimensions, it doesn't make you fall behind.
Yeah.
It actually makes you more productive, more creative, just flat out more effective. It's the opposite of falling behind.
It accelerates you.
Right. Okay, so the why is clear. The 4 dimensions give us a map. But, the challenge is always turning knowing into doing. So, expert, how do the sources suggest we actually start living habit 7? Especially when life feels like it's demanding everything right now.
Yeah, the practical implementation, the sources offer some really concrete steps. First, they suggest creating a weekly self-care plan.
Like actually scheduling it.
Yes, not just hoping it happens. Be intentional. Put time blocks in your calendar for renewal, just like you would for an important meeting. Treat it with the same seriousness.
Okay, schedule it. Makes sense.
Yeah. Second, implement some no screen time every day. Aim for at least an hour if you can. Just disconnect. Let your mind rest from the constant digital buzz. It helps create real mental space.
An hour of no screens? That could be tough for some, but I see the value. Mental quiet.
Definitely. Third, cultivate a consistent habit of learning. Maybe it's an online course. Maybe it's just reading books or articles regularly. Even just a little bit each day keeps the mental muscles working.
Continuous learning. Got it.
And finally, actively invest in your relationships. Don't just let them happen. Dedicate specific quality time to friends and family. Be present with them.
So these aren't huge dramatic changes necessarily.
Not at all. What the sources really stress is that it's about small, consistent actions. Those build up over time. They create real, lasting momentum. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
It really does come back to that consistent self-renewal, doesn't it? Across the physical, the mental, the social, emotional, and the spiritual. It's not an add-on. It's foundational.
For being effective, yes, but also just for, well, deep well-being. Absolutely. And this right here is where the real power, the magic, if you will, of these principles gets unlocked. So here's a challenge, maybe something you can do today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Take a piece of paper or open a note on your phone, whatever works. Make 4 columns: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And then in each column, just write down one specific thing, just one thing you commit to doing for yourself this week in that area.
One thing per area for the week. Simple.
Simple, but powerful if you do it, because the real impact of Habit 7 comes alive only when you actually live it. Even in these small ways, day after day, that's when you feel the difference.
That's a great challenge. So as you go about your week, maybe keep asking yourself that question we started with. What is my saw today? And how specifically will I choose to sharpen it?